So for Appendix G1 and G2, they are tables. They are tables, and I'm going to do my best to read it in a way that makes sense. So I'm trying to imagine, like, if I was doing this and using a screen reader, how this would translate. But also, I want to read it in a way that makes sense in the table, and so that you can apply it if you can think about it. So I'm going to give it my best shot. Appendix G1, Table of Daily Breast Milk Volume Requirements, Estimates in Ounces. Baby weight, so the top of the table is baby weight, required milk, catch-up milk 1, catch-up milk 2. Baby weight in pounds and ounces, required milk at 2.5, catch-up milk 1 at 2.7, and catch-up milk at 3.0. So those are the weight. Okay, 3 times the weight. So baby's weight, if the baby's weight is 5 pounds 0 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 12.5 ounces. The catch-up milk, the first catch-up milk should be 2.7, the catch-up milk at 2.7 times the birth weight, the weight is 13.5, and the catch-up milk at 3 times the weight should be 15 ounces. Okay, maybe the next row will be better. When the baby's weight is 5 pounds 1 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 12.69 ounces. At 2.7 times the weight, it should be 13.69 ounces, and at 3 times the weight, it should be 15.19 ounces. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 2 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 12.881 ounces. At 2.7 times the weight, it should be 13.81 ounces. At 3 times the weight should be 15.38 ounces. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 3 ounces, the required milk should be at 2.5 times the weight should be 13 ounces. At 2.7 times the weight should be 14 ounces. And at 3 times the weight should be 15.56 ounces. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 4 ounces, the required milk should be 13.13 ounces. At when the baby is 2.5 times the weight. When the baby is 2.7 times that weight, it should be 14.19 ounces. And when the baby is 3 times that weight, it's 15.7 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 5 ounces, the required milk is 13 at 2.5 times the weight, should be 13.31 ounces of milk. When the baby's at 2.7 times the weight, it should be 14.38 ounces of milk. And when the baby's at 3 times the weight, it should be 15.94 ounces of milk. Let me get a chart reader. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 6 ounces, at 2.5 times the weight should be 13.44 ounces. At 2.7 times the weight, 14.5 ounces of milk. At 3 times that weight, 16.13 ounces of milk. When the baby is 5 pounds 7 ounces, the required milk at 2 times the weight, 2.5 times the weight should be 13.63 ounces of milk. At 2.7 times the weight, 14.69 ounces of milk. And at 3 times that weight, 16.31 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 8 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 13.75 ounces. At 2.7 times the weight, 14.88 ounces. And at 3 times the weight, 16.5 ounces. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 9 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 13.94 ounces of milk. At 2.7 times the weight, it should be 15 ounces of milk, and at 3 times the weight, it should be 16.69 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 10 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times that weight is 14.06 ounces of milk. At 2.7 times that weight, 15.19 ounces of milk, and at 3 times the weight, 16.88 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 11 ounces, the required milk should be 14.25 ounces of milk. At 2.7 times the weight, 15.38 ounces of milk, and at 3 times the weight, 17.06 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 12 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 14.38 ounces of milk. At 2.7 times the weight, it should be 15.5 ounces of milk, and at 3 times the weight, it should be 17.25 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 13 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 14.56. At the catch-up milk at 2.7 times the weight should be 15.69, and the catch-up milk at 3 times the weight should be 17.44. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 14 ounces, the required milk should be at 2.5 milk should be 14.69 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk at 2.7 times the weight should be 15.88 ounces of milk, and the second catch-up milk at 3 times the weight should be 17.63 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 5 pounds 15 ounces, the required milk should be at 2.5 times the weight should be 14.88 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk at 2.7 times the weight should be 16.06, and the catch-up milk at 3 times the weight should be 17.81. When the baby weighs 6 pounds, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 15 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk 1 at 2.7 times the weight should be 16.19 ounces of milk, and the catch-up milk 2 at 3 times the weight should be 18 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 6 pounds 1 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight should be 15.19 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk 1 at 2.7 times the weight should be 16.38 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk 2 at 3 times the weight should be 18.19 ounces of milk. When the baby weighs 6 pounds 2 ounces, the required milk at 2.5 times the weight is 15.31 ounces of milk. The catch-up milk 1 at 2.7 times the weight should be 16.56 ounces of milk, and the catch-up milk 2 at 3 times the weight should be 18.38 ounces of milk. And this goes on. Wow. So I'm not going to read all of these because you'll need to, this is something that you'll need to read when you, so if you're at a feeding or you're observing, this is something that you would take with you and maybe have it bookmarked so that once you take the baby's weight, and then if you are trying to see at 2.5 times the weight, like the approximate ounces of milk that they should be getting, or if you're playing catch up, how much the baby should be getting, you will use this table directly during an observation to kind of assess and give an approximate amount. But this is not like exactly reading material. It's really something that you use in the practice. So this goes from 5 pounds all the way to 10 pounds 15 ounces. So this Appendix G2, this breaks it down in grams and milliliters, which folks in the United States don't really use. But this is the same thing. Baby weight in grams, 2,000. The required milk in milliliters is 330 milliliters in the catch-up milk. 1 is 360 milliliters. Catch-up milk 2 is 400 milliliters. And that's what this chart, it looks like. It's in milliliters and grams. And so this goes from 2,000, the baby weight of 2,000 grams to 5,000 grams. So that is Appendix G2. Again, I'm not reading all of it because this is something that you would need to use actually in practice. So bookmark this. I actually bookmarked this myself. Not that I have a baby scale, but this is something that you need to just quickly reference. It's meant to be a reference, not necessarily reading material. So that is the end of G1 and G2.